I know that a lot of people from my stream specifically have been excited for this build for a while, a guide about it. And here it is, my crossbow dagger slash dagger crossbow, whatever you want to call it. I'll get into that guide for what I think of it, how to build it, what I would do different if I were to start all over, and make sure you guys are prepped for playing this build for those of you fast-paced action combat enjoyers or assassin enjoyers or whatever. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it. First of all, I want to just take a moment to show you guys this clip over here from my Twitch, and you can see that we deal damage. However, I need to give you an idea of how to get there and let you guys know that if you plan to play this build, you need to get into this build knowing fully well that you are going to have one of the worst times possible at early game, still one of the worst at mid game, and even at end game. This build only becomes good at high level with high stats and high traits and all that stuff, because this build scales heavily with dexterity, and the damage doesn't really show until way later. Now, something that I need to mention is that when I played this game in the beginning, I played it as a dagger crossbow, with dagger being my main. However, I highly recommend against that. It's one of the worst mistakes I've ever made, because the way dagger is built at the moment is sadly more of an offhand. Like, everything about it is just offhand. It's not meant to be a main hand at the moment, so I definitely do not recommend maining it throughout your leveling process. And just, I'll tell you what to focus on anyway, and what I think is going to work well for you and make your leveling life a lot easier. So let's get right into it. So when it comes to the crossbow and the daggers, the way I would play it, as I said, I'll start with being a crossbow main. End game, I'm basically both main. Like, I'm both a dagger and a crossbow main. But early on, focus on your crossbow. It's going to make your life a lot easier. They also said they're going to fix its mana issues anyway, so it's going to be a lot better. And keep in mind that what I would do personally is that I would focus on my quick fire early on, because day one, you don't have PvP anyway. No point focusing on Shadow Strike for the bind. So just get your quick fire up to blue, get your Mortal Mark up to blue. And after you get both of these to blue, you can then get your Shadow Strike to blue for the bind effect, and leave it at that for a while, because realistically, you don't need the silence that early on. You don't even have the damage anyway to make use of that silence. So it's better to just focus on the damage early on. So after you get these three to blue over here, I would then proceed to get my Predatory Strike to blue, and obviously get quick fire, Mortal Mark to purple, alongside your Brutal Incision. Once you're done getting those three here to purples, then you can get either Predatory Strike or Venom. Obviously, I would want to get both to purple, but it's up to you which one you prefer getting to purple first, and then get your Shadow Strike to purple eventually. That is basically what I would be doing with this build. Now, when it comes to the passives, I will have a different approach completely, because this build is very heavily dependent on crit. However, realistically speaking, the way that I wanted to do it before is focus on the Assassin's Instinct early, but realistically, it's not going to make too much of a difference until you hit the end game anyway. So leave it for now and focus on your Naturous Power. Naturous Power is really good. It gives you flat damage bonus. And also focus on your Refuse, Poison, and Assassin Step. Assassin Step is amazing once you get it to rare. Every kill you get the mana regen, so basically you start not having mana issues as much. And also once you get Refuse to purple, you will have the damage increasing in the daytime and at night, and also the poison duration and all that at both times. So overall, it's pretty damn good. After you get those up to purple, alongside your Nature's Power, then you can focus on Assassin's Instinct and your Shadow Walker for the PvP. Up to you which one you want first, based on how much crit you have. Preferably go with Shadow Walker first for the PvP, and then eventually get your Ambi Dexterity to purple. That would be all the way at endgame, because at endgame is realistically when you're going to have higher offhand and start proccing it more. So this will actually be really beneficial. One skill or one passive that I think is good, but not really worth it until very late game is Crucial Chance. Now, just to give you an idea, this is my PvP passive build. This is like what I use for PvP. However, when it comes to PvE, I change for this. This is basically what I'm running. I do not like detection. It's not good at all. That's why I'm not using it. However, this is like basically what I run for PvE. The only exception is when I run instance dungeons, specifically when I'm on bosses or the last boss. This one over here becomes insanely good. You can put it instead of this, you can put it instead of this, preferably instead of actually Assassin Step. The reason for that is Assassin Step triggers after killing a mob, and realistically at a boss, like, you know, you're not going to be activating it. So it's better to put this instead. And for PvE bosses like dungeons, I like to put Merciless Barrage. For PvP, I obviously put back my Camouflage Cloak. And when it comes to events that I know I'm not having a hard time with, and they are PvE events, I take Black Wind Spirit for the extra AoE damage. Even though it's not much, honestly, the skill is like really terrible, but it still gives me that extra, you know, damage that could actually help me clean up packs faster. So I take that in PvE events. Instance dungeons, you take this, and in any PvP event, you just take this. This is usually what I run. Feel free to play around with it. Feel free to do whatever you see fit with it. Do keep in mind, one thing that I forgot to mention is that you also need at end game, once again, the moment you're basically focusing on your ambidexterity level up, you need to get this selfless infiltration to purple as well, because it will increase your offhand weapon attack chance by 120%. So realistically, you could either in PvP, you would leave it and use it when you get bound, to break out of bind, but outside of PvP you could actually initiate your combo with it. So realistically, if I want to like do a combo, let me show you guys here real quick. Let's go to the dummy. There's a dummy over here. So I could pop my poison, my selfless infiltration, this Sun Gale, and sadly I didn't have the time to showcase the end of it. So basically you would pop your poison, pop your selfless infiltration, and then after you pop poison into selfless infiltration, you will then use your Thorn Gale into your Mortal Mark, into a dash, Nimble Leap, into your Quick Fire, and then finish off by dashing into them, Predatory Strike, Mortal Mark, into Brutal Incision. So you can feel free, of course, to mix it up. So basically I would do this. And then there we go. If I pop the offhand, as you can see, I got 4,000 only from my Brutal Incision because of the offhand. Now, a quick explanation to what is an offhand in the first place. Simply put, if I don't proc on offhand, this is applicable to daggers and crossbow because a dagger is 2 weapons, a crossbow is 2 weapons. If I, let's say, use Brutal Incision, if I don't proc on offhand, it will do the skill only once. But if I proc the offhand, it uses it twice. And that applies to every skill pretty much. That is like, for example, Quick Fire, Merciless Barrage, all that stuff. This is basically what an offhand chance actually is. And this is why Selfless Infiltration is really, really good. Now, in terms of gear, my personal recommendation for very end game is to get the Ghost Wolf set. This drops from the top piece drops from Morokai. The helmet drops from Chernobog, and the gloves drop from Shadowed Crypt, the dungeon over here, the open world dungeon from the assassins. Do keep in mind that you need to have these points available while you're grinding the dungeon to try to get the gloves. Or obviously you can just like buy it from the marketplace if you have enough lucent and someone is selling it. But overall, this build is very important and you need the 4 set. And the reason is very obvious. As you can see here, if you get the 4 pieces, you will get an offhand weapon attack chance boost 30%. And guess what is good for you? Offhand. And that is why this is really, really important to get like the whole 4 pieces set. For the weapons, however, I like this dagger. To me, I feel like this dagger is like pretty much business slot aside from Tivent. But once Tivent gets unlocked eventually, then you would want to get the Tivent weapons. So here you have like this one. It gives you like a lot of damage, dexterity, damage bonus, and also the melee critical hit on top of it. And here you will want Queen Bellender because it's also really good. A lot of dexterity, which once again, your build scales heavily with dexterity. As you can see in my stats right now, I have 20 dexterity out of only my equipment. And in the future, if you get those weapons as well, you will get even a lot more. So that's why it's very important to actually stick into dexterity. Now, I say this, but the only exception to that is your leveling process. When you're leveling up as a new player and you want to play this build, I highly recommend you put perception. Get your perception to 25 or 30. That is your number one stat you're going to stick into. And then the rest can start going like across the board. Actually, what I did while leveling to not have a hard time, after I got my perception to 30, I started spreading my points between like dexterity and wisdom. And then that actually helped me clear a lot of the content. And once I got to end game, I started investing a lot into my dexterity, because until then, realistically, you're not going to get good numbers anyway out of it. So feel free to play around with the stats. However, my recommendation is to go 30 perception, get your dexterity to 30 base. If you have some from your gear, that's good. If you don't, then just base 30. And then wisdom and strength, just put a mix of both up to your own preference until you get to end game. When it comes to traits, obviously you would want here, for example, attack speed is not bad. However, what I would like is ranged hit, ranged critical hit, and ranged heavy attack chance. Same for the dagger, melee hit, melee critical hit, and melee heavy attack chance, depending of course on like what you have in terms of hit rate or crit rate. Based on that, you will decide if you want to give up one or the other. But overall, these are like business slot traits that you would be looking for. There are other options like buff duration, added attack speed like this, for example. Stuff like that are pretty good. It's up to you, your own preference, go for it. Keep in mind, however, you need the mana regen and health regen to be high. This is not the actual numbers because I am in the city. So normally make sure you leave the city to check your proper mana regen and health regen to know how much you are lacking. Which in this case, for example, here I have 394. Not the best, but not the worst. It's decent, but my health regen is obnoxiously bad. This is like one of the worst things possible. And the reason for that, honestly, is because I didn't pay much attention to my traits anyway, which will be fixed in the future. However, do make sure that you have at least, roughly speaking, 400 of each. 600 is a very good spot, but don't slack on your health regen and mana regen. Make sure you have health regen, mana regen, stack up evasion for ranged and magic. I personally don't like putting melee evasion. If I get it, I use it for now as a filler, but later on I would change it to ranged and magic, because realistically in mass PvP, those are the ones that are a threat to me mostly, and those are the ones that I will attack more as well as an assassin. So that is honestly my tip for you regarding this. If I forgot anything, feel free to ask me in the comments. Let me know what you think of the build. Do keep in mind, however, that when you are playing this, do not play this build unless you have a solid party for mass PvP, a solid guild for mass PvP, and you have the ping and FPS for it, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you're lacking any of these things, you're not going to have a fun time. This marks the end of this video for me. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching as usual, and peace.